Hi everybody, and welcome to DnD Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a player in a game of Dungeons & Dragons that purposely becomes that guy as a form of revenge on the Dungeon Master. A story about a Dungeon Master's incel uncle joining her game and becoming a murder hobo, and much more. But first, a message from Ziggy.
Remember to like, comment and subscribe. Yay, a string.
Thanks, Ziggy. I hope they do. But with that said, let's get into some D&D horror stories. The problem player is being a problem player for an unusual reason. By Reddit user tpunk00. Background: a campaign with a first-time game master. Most of us are novices. The problem player is the one most experienced. He has game mastered for our current game master in the past, but none of the other players had played with him. The story: the problem player was annoying from the very beginning. Classic problem player repertoire: interrupting others, off top, not paying attention, paying too much attention, as in commenting and talking over others when his character is absent, assuming his plans are the only right ones, hoarding equipment, joking in an obnoxious way. I mean, Ligma in 2024, when the game master is describing a scene? Really? Being aggressive towards NPCs, etc. Just imagine any typical issue, and he probably did it. I've tried asking others whether they have an issue with him, but all I got was general, "I'm inexperienced, so I don't want to rock the boat." Or, "I do agree, but I don't want to speak up because I don't feel like I have the authority to do that." Alright, maybe this group is just not for me. I messaged the DM that I'd like to leave and explained my reasons. They agreed that his behavior is too much and asked whether I'd like to stay if they talked to the problem player, because he's not usually like that. So I agreed. A day later, the game master messaged our group chat to notify them if something's bothering us, and that they'll be introducing the X card. Great. Then, the problem player piped up that the X card is a fine tool, but it's better to be assertive instead of passive aggressiveness. I've tried to multiple times, but he was constantly speaking over everybody and didn't even hear what I was saying. I've explained in the group chat that I intended to leave due to clashing playstyles, and asked whether he meant that me complaining to the game master is what he considers being passive-aggressive. He replied that he actually doesn't even know what my issue was, because when the game master talked to him, it was too, quote, fluid, without any particular issues. So I gave him a long answer with multiple points. While he agreed that he has an issue with interrupting other players, he mentioned that he doesn't feel bad or even responsible for his aggressive roleplay. He then explained that he's been GMing for our current GM for a few years now, and that they're extremely hostile towards his NPCs. Also, that they've been infantilizing his Star Wars campaigns. Therefore, it's his right to do the same to them. The GM explained that yes, while that would be the case if they were playing one-on-one, but that there are other people that he has to consider. He answered that he'd feel a, quote, cognitive dissonance behaving in any other way, because he's so used to this playstyle when our current game master is around. And while he might be bothered to work on other issues, his character will be as hostile as he was. I mentioned that it's a serious clash of interests for me, because I'm there to have fun, and not to clean messes made by another player. He then decided that he's had enough and left. To sum it up, yes, he used the campaign as a revenge ploy against the current game master to teach them a lesson on how it feels to deal with a hostile player character without any regard for the other players. Yeah, That sounds like a whole load of drama that I know I wouldn't want to deal with. And I don't blame OP for wanting to nope out of that situation. The fact that this player is purposely being a problem in this game just because the game master is an issue in his games is so petty and childish. Like, instead of doing that and basically sabotaging GM's game and the game for the players that have nothing to do with it, he could, I don't know, talk to the GM like an adult about how GM acts in his games. But no, this is the way he chose, thus ruining the game for everyone else. If I were OP, I would run far, far away from this situation and find my tabletop RPG fix somewhere else. Though, what are your thoughts on this one? Let's move on. Incel ruins his niece's D&D game by Reddit user Unusual Lifeguard 923. I play Dungeons & Dragons with a group of friends who I go to college with. Me, a Tabaxi druid, 2 other guys, human warlock and hobgoblin fighter, and human warlock's sister, human monk. Then, of course, the DM. It's a campaign full of back and forth travel between the 9 hells and the prime material plane. We usually meet up at the DM's house. She lives with a bunch of her extended family, including her uncle. He is her mother's younger brother, and about 5 sessions in, he started begging DM to let him play too. She was kind of reluctant at first, because, in her words, he's kinda cringe and a man-child. But 2 sessions later, she let him roll up a character, a lizard folk wizard. So he joined us in a random town that wasn't really noteworthy. We had a few sessions on the road where nothing of note happened, but once we got to the city, his antics really started getting going. He would, from here on out, be a wild horn dog, and be as maximally weird about it as possible. And when his niece refused some of the more graphic and or creepy requests, like him using Mage Hand on a princess to quote, grab her privates, he would then go on a rant about how he feels women shouldn't be DMs, and then play off the rant like, I'm just teasing you, DM. And that is not even counting his frequent rants about quote, modern women, usually prompted by some bad interaction with the opposite sex in game. Like when he tried aggressively flirting, more like sexually harassing, a barmaid, and got rejected and warned to back off. He went on a rant about how impossible it is for men to get laid these days, and how you can't even look at a woman nowadays without her crying essay. He legitimately seemed to think what he was saying was funny or relatable. Granted, this was the time he got wasted at the table, and he did apologize for that particular outburst, but he still would occasionally drop the mini sexist rant here and there. The final straw, though, was when we encountered a family of travelers who happened to be carrying loot. That guy was drunk, again. A mom, a dad, a son, a young adult, and a daughter, a young teen. Hobgoblin Fighter killed the parents and the son because he is kind of a murder hobo, and Uncle Lizard Wizard helped him kill them. After they died, he then said, "Leave the girl. She's mine." In a fit of adrenaline, I can't help myself as I pin the girl down, rip her clothes off, and start effing her till she bleeds. Dude, what the fuck? You're playing with your niece. DM then said, before you do literally any of that, she reveals herself to be a dragon made of magma. Your privates burn off before you even get within an inch of her. He then says, well, what the F? She just says, sorry, but sometimes these things happen. And then he said, they happen when the DM ruins the fun, just to be politically correct. She then said, well, if you hate my DMing style so much, then go. He then stormed off to his room and threw a big fat temper tantrum that we could hear for hours. She was just glad that her parents weren't home so she could avoid the family drama. Afterwards, he begged to be let in again and again over the course of a week. And unfortunately, DM agreed on the condition that he is to abstain from alcohol the entire day before playing a D&D game. One more F-up and he's out. I told her I think letting him back was a bad idea, and that I genuinely feel that he is ruining the game. But she is going to give him one more chance, so we just told her that we will be there to support her if he acts like a jackass again, in or out of game. TLDR, DM lets her uncle play D&D with us, only for him to act like a total drunk incel the entire game, and throw a tantrum when he gets kicked. She then decided to give him another chance. Again, this dude was playing with his niece and tried to have her roleplay that? It doesn't matter if he was drunk at the time. That is just ew. I'm honestly surprised that she is giving her uncle another chance after that temper tantrum. But I get a feeling that if she doesn't let her uncle play, some of her family might give her crap for it. She definitely was not exaggerating when she described him as a man-child. But hopefully, he will learn from this, stay away from the alcohol, and stop acting like a child during the game, or out of it even. So, I wish OP and the rest of the group Godspeed with that, as I think they will need it. Let's move on. I died in session 0, and I don't know what to do now. By Reddit user, Fire of KLD. So basically, we were doing small sessions with our DM before starting the campaign later today. For a little context, we have been on hiatus for a few months, and today is supposed to be our first session, back with new characters. I cooked up a fun and interesting character that I was very excited to play. However, we did small session zeros with our DM. I did mine with one other player because his character worked for mine. We were being followed by a hooded figure, and after getting a surprise jump on her, 3 assassins, challenge rating 8, popped out of nowhere and killed me, but ended up letting my counterpart live. We are level 1, and I just felt that this was an entirely unbalanced and frankly unnecessary thing to do. It couldn't have been a surprise to the DM that I died. I am just at a loss because I didn't even get into our first session, and I have to make a new character. I'm considering just not returning to the game because of simply how frustrated I am with the DM's decision. But am I being unreasonable? I haven't confronted the DM yet because I was simply too angry last night to say anything level-headed. But what do I even say? Well, first off, I just have to say that session zeros are usually used to establish characters, talk about the setting, and setting boundaries if anyone has them, before starting the actual game. So I would consider the mini sessions for each character more like a session 0.5. But with that said, I have to agree with OP on this. It is a bit BS for the DM to just up and kill off OP's character before session 1 even started. Now, having mini sessions for each character before they meet each other's characters that are going to be in the party is a really fun way to lead up to that. Heck, in one of my campaigns that my group has, in case one certain player that has to cancel a lot due to reasonable things, we did a sort of session 0.5 for each individual player. And I even had to fight off some bandits for mine. But the DM also had NPCs that assisted my character to help ensure that my character would not die, especially since he's a life cleric. I feel that if a dungeon master wants to do something like this before starting the actual campaign, they need to give the player's characters some sort of plot armor for that session, just to ensure that something like what happened in this story doesn't occur. But with all that being said, my advice to OP would be to talk to the Dungeon Master about why it is a bit BS that OP spent time to make said character, only for the DM to off them before the campaign even really began, and ask if they can retcon that certain event, or even have something happen in the narrative that would cause OP's character to come back to life, so that OP can play the character that they spent time making and that they want to play. Hopefully, the DM would be reasonable and do that, and at the same time, not revenge target OP during the actual campaign because they feel called out. Though, if the DM does end up sticking to his original decision, I would then express that I would not be making a new character, as I don't trust the Dungeon Master at that point to run a fair game. Now, I realize I've been rambling quite a bit for such a short story, so I'll just leave it at that, and ask you fine viewers, especially you Steve, what kind of advice would you give OP for this situation? But as I have been rambling a bit, let's move on to the next post. Murder Hobo Party decide to cut off my legs. Dungeon Master joins in before banning me. By Reddit user No Statement 9011. This happened a long time ago, in my first D&D game. I was playing a human fighter, to be expected, and the party includes a sorcerer, rogue 1, rogue 2, and rogue 3. That's a lot of rogues! The fact that there were 3 rogues made it much worse, but let's get into it. So, I was invited 1 hour before the campaign started for Lost Mines of Phandelver, and everything was cool at the beginning, before the Dungeon Master started to show his real self more. He acted like he was all veteran, but years later, now that I'm a DM, I realize he was absolute garbage. He allowed the sorcerer to have a goat, and one of the rogues to have a wolf. Rogue 1, the worst. First, it started off normal, nothing bad yet. And then, the goblin ambush happened, and all that stuff. After the fight, I persuaded the other players to hold one of the goblins hostage. Though, instead of trying to talk about it, they decided to gag me and kill the goblin. Now, what they did after this makes me laugh till this day. They literally cut my legs off, and the DM allowed the sorcerer to replace my legs with that of a horse. Level 1 sorcerer, that's not even possible to do. Before the edgy rogue decided to make his wolf jump, bite, and grapple me. I sent the Dungeon Master a message on Discord, but he said that's how the game works, which is BS. He couldn't even follow the basic rules, so I stabbed the wolf, and that was apparently enough to get me banned. When I asked why, he told me it was because I committed friendly fire. And cutting OP's legs off was just friendly? Which is just very hypocritical and hilarious at the same time. Then, the sorcerer sent me a direct message apologizing. I accepted it with a grain of salt. Looking back, it's pretty funny how edgy and stupid the other players were, and I definitely dodged a bullet. Well, I would go as far to say that OP dodged a missile in this case. Just based off that first experience, you can just tell that that group would have been a nightmare to play with. And Dungeon Master's reasoning for kicking OP being friendly fire is ridiculous, considering that they cut off OP's character's legs, and OP only attacked one of the rogue player's wolf. Plus, that many rogues in one party should have been a red flag in and of itself. At least this didn't turn OP away from D&D, seeing how it was their first game. On to the next post. The most insufferable player I ever had to deal with. By Reddit user YushianDistance3486. I started a new game with 1 player from an old campaign and 3 new players I had not played with before. 2 of the new ones had never played before, while one of them, the problem player, Mary, said all of her previous games ended too soon. Now, while not the reddest of flags, that could be taken as a sign of what's to come. I was happy to help them set up. I helped them all with the backstory to make it fit in the world that I was planning. Everyone was fine except Mary, who sent me a really long backstory, which basically was her character being the chosen one and having killed a dragon before. I told her it didn't make sense, as they were starting from level 1. So she sent me another story about how the chosen one was cursed by her jealous stepbrother and lost her powers. I tweaked the story a lot while talking with her, making it so she wasn't something so overpowered, as I didn't know how to make it work in game with normal leveling up. She wasn't happy about the changes, but agreed. Now, I would say that this is a bit of a brighter flag, as her wanting her character to be the chosen one, to the point of 1v1ing a dragon and winning, are all signs that she is going to have some massive main character syndrome. Though, having it that she lost all of her powers, Metroid style, could work, as it could make for some interesting character development, as a way to humble her character by having to team up with others to make it in the world. Though you would need a pretty decent role player to pull that off, and something tells me that Mary isn't that. I had made a group where they could all talk, and Mary was happy that there was another girl in the group besides her. After a day when I had talked with her about her character, Mary sent me a message that she and the other girl had talked and decided to change their backstories a bit. The new story had no change in Mary's character, while the new girl was basically her hype man and the one who recorded Mary's epic adventures. I asked the girl, and she was clearly not pleased with the story and had not agreed to the story. But Mary had assumed her saying, quote, "Let's see," as her agreeing. I probably should have kicked her out right here, but I did not. Yep, I agree that this should have been the point that OP kicked her from the group, or at least tried to have another talk with her. Telling a DM that another player is changing their backstory to fit with her character when they actually did not is making the main character syndrome sirens blare more than Silent Hill. Our first session went well, besides Mary wasting no time and telling everyone how awesome her character was and how much stronger she was than everyone else, even though she was level 1. It was a bit annoying, but nothing too major. In the second episode, I had them meet the Guildmaster, a guy who was a national hero, and he appointed them as a party with one of his students so she could learn how to be an adventurer. I sort of had planned for her to be one of the DMPCs who would level up alongside them, and they would keep meeting earlier on. The party liked her, but then Mary insulted the Guildmaster by saying that he was most likely a fraud. Now, for the NPC that was with them, I had decided that she would look up to the Guildmaster, as he had saved her village when she was a child, and he was now her mentor. So that NPC asked her to take back what she'd said. Mary did not like this at all. She, completely out of character, started telling me how I had instantly ruined a good female character by making her only personality be that she likes a guy. I told her that wasn't the case, and that the character had a lot more to her personality, and looking up to that guy was part of her character, but not the entirety of it. The others also joined in telling Mary that she was being rude, and that she needed to stop arguing. She kept arguing, and also started crying, leaving the call and the group. She sent a message to the other girl that she should leave as well, because this group was clearly misogynistic, and that she would regret staying. The other girl told us that she had a friend who can join us, so now I have 4 players again, with the game being infinitely better. Edit. The NPC looked up to the Guildmaster. Also, the NPC was not going to outshine anyone. She was supposed to be the same level as them, and was going to meet them every once in a while. She was mostly for exposition, etc. Now, first, I need to say that this story sounds a bit familiar. I think I may have read about the same game, but from one of the players' perspectives. But aside from that, Mary definitely sounded like a headache of a player. Between all those main character syndrome symptoms and the adversarial attitude towards OP for having a female character look up to a male character as a mentor, I mean, it would make sense that that character would look up to the guildmaster, as he did save her and her village. Mary's accusation of the character having no other personality is really stupid, because she didn't even give OP a chance of developing the character after first introducing her. In the end, Mary arguing, then leaving, is what I would call the trash taking itself out in this case. And I'm glad to hear that the other player that Mary tried to rewrite her backstory had another friend that was able to join up, and that the game became a lot more enjoyable. But this story does serve as a lesson. If a player is showing all of those signs of being a disruptive player, it may be a good idea to try talking to them, and if that doesn't take, just nipping the problem in the bud and kicking them. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.